when it sort of started feeling real that the nomination was going to be yours. And I guess just reflecting back on your campaign leading up to this primary, what worked for you, particularly not just in Richmond, but some of the other localities across Virginia that you ended up winning?
Yeah, it was a really, really tough primary. We had strong opponents and a lot of work to do. Tuesday night was the culmination of 15 months of hard campaigning, and that meant traveling all across Virginia. And I think what worked was the message that I was sharing with so many voters, and it was really resonating. Not just the work that I've done, 6 years of experience in the Virginia Senate, the legislation that I've carried, focused especially around education and housing and healthcare, as well as our environmental policy agenda. That message was resonating, but also my personal story. I was a community college professor, but also as an immigrant and as a Muslim with Donald Trump's first election in 2016, I saw a real need for many diverse voices to step up and to offer representation in our state government. I think that message hit home for so many voters.
So let's, not to dwell too much on the past, but you've got a busy couple of months ahead. So let's talk about November. So we know that Trump has never really played well as a candidate here in Virginia. But as we speak right now, Republicans control all statewide offices, right? So even though Trump has never really played well in Virginia, Democrats nationally seem to be in a interesting position right now. So I'm curious how your ticket is going to appeal to voters with sort of that dichotomy right now in the country.
I think voters are going to see a clear contrast between the Democratic ticket and the folks who are running on the Republican side. And frankly, they are not even a ticket. They have yet to do a joint event together or release a joint press statement even. And the dysfunctionality that we see in Washington is reflected in the dysfunctionality of the ticket that they are presenting to Virginians. The clear lines of distinction are that we as Democrats have been fighting to protect Virginians given the chaos and the effects of the Trump administration. Critically in front of us is the catastrophe that we're going to face in our healthcare system should the Trump administration and the Republican Congress move forward on the dismantling of Medicaid. Medicaid expansion is in danger here in Virginia. That's over 600,000 Virginians who will be directly and immediately impacted. And so what we are offering as a ticket between myself, Congresswoman Spanberger, as well as Jay Jones, is that we're going to present a formidable response to the destruction that we're seeing coming out of the federal government that directly impacts the lives of Virginians.
We know it's no secret that Virginia is purple, is a purple state, right? It's a state that can statewide in 2021 elect Youngkin, but it's also a state that can, re-elect Kane, right? So I'm just curious right now if you have a strategy for appealing to undecided voters right now, or that middle 5-10% of voters that Virginia really seems to swing one way or the other on every election cycle.
Absolutely. As I've been traveling for 15 months across Virginia, I have heard issues and concerns that resonate with everybody that lives in the Commonwealth, and predominantly coming to the forefront are the issues around education, access to health care, and housing. And not only are we going to be speaking to those concerns, but we're also going to be presenting concrete responses to the ways in which we're fighting to protect all of our commitments to education and housing and our healthcare needs. And that is a message that resonates with everybody. These aren't red issues or blue issues. They're issues that impact every family. And that's what we're going to be speaking to as we travel across Virginia in the next several months.
As Lieutenant Governor, the main job is honestly presiding over the state Senate, and you're currently a state senator, right? I'm curious, in that position, if you get there in November, you're obviously the tie-breaking vote for whatever comes across your desk. Are there any issues, or do you have any particular issue or bill or effort that you would maybe personally hope comes across your desk to be a tie-breaking vote, whether that's reproductive health, just because we don't know how the chambers are going to shake out in November. But is there an issue, and can you speak onto some issues that you honestly, maybe selfishly, hope you get to cast a vote on?
Well, I am confident in my colleagues in the Democratic Senate caucus. You know, we do have a slim majority. We've got 21 senators who identify as Democrats, and we currently hold that one-seat majority. And that will continue in the next administration, regardless of the outcomes in November, because the Senate is not up for re-election. What is going to be important, however, is that we ensure that we continue to be a cohesive force in resisting the efforts that we've seen under the Youngkin administration to attack abortion, to dismantle public education, and to not actually protect Virginians' voting rights. On so many issues, there's been efforts on the part of the Youngkin administration to harm Virginia. And I'm confident that our Senate Democratic Caucus is going to stay firm on the values that we have been working hard to fight and represent. Now, we just saw the critical effects of having a lieutenant governor that actually understands the issues and that is committed to protecting Virginians. When the Right to Contraception Act, which was my legislation, came in front of Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, and it was a tie in the Senate, she had the opportunity to demonstrate to Virginians that she is actually working to protect their critical access to medical care. And instead, she reflected the values of Trump and the extremists in her own party, and she cast a vote to kill that legislation. So we need a lieutenant governor who understands policy, but also understands how it impacts the lives of day-to-day Virginians, and this is what I'm fully committed to doing.
Yesterday, John Reed had a press gaggle outside of a local middle school and basically made comments that he considers you a radical candidate. What's your response to John Reed's comments on that?
Well, I don't have time to respond to the kind of distracting verbiage of John Reed's. I'm so focused on the issues, and unlike John Reed's, I actually have been working on policy that impacts education. As chair of the Senate Committee on Education and Health for the past several years, I've carried the omnibus bills.
As chair of the Senate Health and Education Committee, biggest issues on those particular topics in Virginia right now?
Unlike Mr. Reed, I've actually been working on this critical issue of supporting our education system here in Virginia for the past several years. As chair of Senate Education and Health, I have been driving the response to the critical underfunding that we've seen in Virginia for almost the last 2 decades now. The recent report that we had highlighted the ways in which state government has pulled away funding to the tune of almost $6.6 billion. So in our last 2 budget cycles, we have worked consciously to provide that critical level of funding that is most directly going to impact our rural schools and our struggling schools in so many different localities.
You are proud to not shy away from the fact that you are the first Muslim American or first Muslim person elected to the state Senate, first South Asian, and if taking that, you'd be the first for those as well as lieutenant governor. Right now, just in the political climate right now, there's a lot happening in the Middle East. Do you think that, if we're talking about identity a little bit, do you think that some of your Muslim and Asian American background may be attacked by Republicans in the next couple of weeks, months leading up to the election?
It already has been attacked. It was attacked repeatedly the first time I ran for office in 2019, and what we see is an exposure of the xenophobia, the bigotry, the fundamental racism that drives so many of the extremists on the right-wing side. And I actually ran to respond to that extremism. I ran to respond to the bigotry. I ran because I knew representation matters, and it's so important that we break stereotypes. You know, here in Virginia, we have the blessing of being the home of so many diverse immigrant communities, so many different faith traditions, and we have to ensure that everybody feels that they are welcome in Virginia, that they have a place here in Virginia. And representation of the state government is critically important. You know, I was the first Muslim in the Virginia State Senate, but I was quickly followed by another colleague, and that is because we see the growth and the diversity that we have here in the Commonwealth. And frankly, I speak to so many voters who are so excited at the opportunity of demonstrating how Virginia is a reflection of our vast community here. And when I first ran in 2019, my tagline was, "Ghazala Hashmi is an American name." And I had so many voters respond to that. And in fact, the success I've had in running for a state Senate seat that was Republican held for several decades, flipping that seat is a testament and to the fact that voters really want to see quality and reflections of dedication to the mission of public service. And that's what they identified in the work that I've been doing.
You did quite well in terms of the way the vote broke down. You did quite well in not just the Richmond area, but you did quite well for more rural southwestern counties, counties that are, we know, predominantly red. And I'm curious if there is a strategy going into this election cycle. I asked about undecided voters, but is there a strategy to potentially appeal to Republican voters? I know that, you know, the mantra is that when you are elected to statewide office, you represent all the people regardless of their political beliefs. But right now on the campaign trail, beyond undecided voters, what is the strategy to appealing to specifically Trump voters? I guess off the heels of you winning the primary and doing well in those respective localities.
Well, I did well in those localities, I think, because the voters there saw me show up and be present on so many different issues and concerns. And the voters responded because they see that my focus are on the matters that impact them and their families. And more specifically, you know, I've been serving for 6 years on the Broadband Advisory Council to make sure that we are reaching every underserved and under-resourced community in Virginia so everyone has access to that essential utility. As a vice chair of the Joint Commission on Healthcare, I've been part of the team that's focused on the needs of rural healthcare systems and hospitals in Southwest Virginia in particular. And as someone who has worked for decades in the Virginia Community College system, focusing on educational opportunities and expanding that economic development and growth that we need to see in these rural areas has really resonated with so many different voters. And so as I approach and talk to voters all across Virginia, I want to ensure that they see my shared commitment to the issues that are directly impacting their lives. I grew up in a very rural area in southeast Georgia, and so rural communities have always been so close to my heart. And I asked to be placed on the Senate Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources Committee so that I could work on these issues. I have a very close working relationship with the Virginia Farm Bureau and with other state agencies and organizations that work in rural communities. And I fully commit to continuing that work because this is so important to me personally.
Is there added pressure as candidates to do well, knowing that a lot of the country is looking at Virginia specifically to see how Democrats are going to perform?
Absolutely. Virginia is ready to send a loud signal in response to what we saw in this last November's election. And our response is going to be that we are focused on the critical needs of every family here in the Commonwealth. And Virginians are facing a crisis of confidence in Washington. The loss of thousands of federal jobs has directly impacted Virginia's families. The cuts to health care are are having a ripple effect already in our healthcare systems. The dismantling of the U.S. Department of Education is harming our most vulnerable children and our public education system. And so when we vote in November, we are putting on the ballot all of these critical issues, and we're sending a loud message, not just to Washington, but throughout the country, that the role of government is to stand up and fight for the citizens that it represents. And Virginians want leadership that is committed to Virginia's families, and that we are providing hope and resilience, particularly in this time when we're seeing the crisis unfolding in the Trump administration. I think it's really important to highlight for voters that we have 3 critical constitutional amendments in front of us for this upcoming administration, and John Reed has declared that he doesn't support any of them. And these constitutional amendments protect the right to marry who you love. They protect the restoration of voting rights for all Virginians. And thirdly, we have the 3rd constitutional amendment that would protect reproductive freedom here in Virginia. Given the direction that we have the Supreme Court going under the Trump administration in particular, we have to make sure that these 3 constitutional amendments are passed and that they are in front of the voters in November of 2026. But it's a 3-step process, and that is so critical for voters to understand.